along with Andrew Young, both of SCLC at that time, they initiated citizenship schools, also known as the Citizenship Education Program at Penn Community Services. And this is going to be where citizenship schools are preparing people to become literate, adults becoming literate within the realm of voting, getting prepared for the right to vote, and also preparing community people to become leaders. So showing them how to be responsible leaders when the time came for them to serve in a public political arena. Let's see what we have next here. Okay. Penn was selected for these meeting sites for a couple of reasons. One, because it was isolated, it was kind of secret and tucked away, and hidden and considered a safe haven, isolated from some of the white segregationists, and could protect. Kind of served as a little incubator to help protect a baby, so to speak. And so, one of the things I wanted to say about the citizenship schools going back is that that challenged segregation as being contrary to the constitutional amendments passed during the Reconstruction era. And this was a quote by Dr. Vernon Burton, who wrote this amazing account of Penn Center's history called Penn Center, A History Preserved. Dr. Burton's coming from Clemson University, and he worked with us greatly, along with Wilbur-Cross and Dr. Emery Campbell, to put this together. When I came on in 2012, this was published. And so a little bit more about the citizenship schools. They laid this foundation. The foundation was made by Andrew Young, Septimore Clark, Dorothy Cotton, for future Southern Christian Leadership Conferences and meetings, retreats to be held at Penn, beginning as early as March 1964. And at the recommendation to Dr. Martin Luther King by Andrew Young. So behind me is a cottage called Gant Cottage, which is very important to Penn School's history. Hastings Gant was a formerly enslaved person who amassed land and sold and donated a portion of the 50-acre National Historic Landmark District that you saw rendered on that map. And it's because of him, along with the founders, Laura Town and Ellen Murray, that we have Penn Center today. And so Gant Cottage, this is not the original cottage that he stayed in. His cottage, when he was residing, when he was on the campus, burned down. And the students rebuilt this in 1940. My father, Elton Smalls, was a student at Penn School. He graduated in 1943, and he had a little hand in helping build this building. He would help bring the lumber from the shed over to the site, the construction site. Students helped to build these, along with the buildings on the campus, along with community members. So, back to the retreats. The SCLC retreats that would take place on the campus. The first retreat brought about 15 members of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference from southern states, and to organize a series of boycotts and to train local leaders in methods of nonviolent protest. That's really important. That's always what we've heard Dr. King standing for, and SCLC. The SCLC staff retreats at Penn took place from 1964 to 1967, and the staff analyzed questions on philosophy, strategy, and politics in an informal and safe atmosphere. The retreats were meant to promote understanding within SCLC and to forge a renewed dedication to the struggle for civil rights. And the staff were able to discuss their problems, air grievances, and enjoy one another, and especially time with Dr. King. In the image behind me, you see Dr. King pictured with a very young Jesse Jackson. Next to Jesse Jackson is Joan Baez. Yeah. And then Ira Pearl, I'm forgetting his name, I'm sorry, the white gentleman in the far back. And then with the pad and paper, the pad and pen next to Dr. King, her name is escaping me, please forgive me, but she was Dr. Benjamin E. May's assistant. And Dr. May's a very important person within the civil rights movement and beyond as far as education. He served as president of Morehouse College in Atlanta. He did so much more, but he was actually Dr. King's spiritual mentor and worked very closely with him. Dr. Benjamin E. Mays also served on the Board of Trustees at Penn Center. And so his assistant would come often when he could not to make sure that, he was kept informed about what was taking place on the campus. So that's one image of Dr. King and some of the SCLC members on their first visit to Penn. This again is Dr. King and Jesse Jackson on the grounds at Penn Center. So the staff were able, as I said, to air their grievances and really be able to work out the next movement for SCLC and how they would help strategize the civil rights movement. During their workshops, there were workshops recommended on tactics for demonstration and marches. They strategized sessions on everything was outlined. There were group meals, sing-alongs, recreation. We even have pictures of softball games that would take place on the campus and kind of quell the fires of debate that would take place in some of the meetings. There were a lot of heated debate. You can see some of the photos from Bob Fitch, who was one of the photographers during this time, where some people are like, and very heated, very all in your personal space debate. And so you needed Joe Byers to break out that guitar and calm things down. You needed to go outside on the beautiful campus and be able to woosah, to really be able to refresh yourself and regain your sanity sometimes. And during the retreats, Dr. King always gave at least one speech, a sermon, an informal talk, to kind of set the tone for the discussions and reinforce their impact. And these retreats at Penn played a significant, even vital part of the evolution of SCLC. So behind me is an image, I'm going to pause there, behind me is an image of Dr. King with our first executive director standing, Courtney P. Seisloff. He's very important. He has even been appointed on a national level talking about and serving as an advocate for civil rights in the United States. Then his wife, and then also a young John Seisloff. All of them served on our Board of Trustees at one point. So, move forward. And then this is also an image of Dr. King in the Seisloff home. Behind them is a medallion on the wall. We had the awesome honor of having George Foster Peabody serve on our Board of Trustees during the school's existence. And behind that is a Peabody medallion that would be given to students. Some of the first Peabody Awards were given on the Penn Center, on the Penn School campus. And if you were a writer, and mostly for young individuals that would be in writing, creative writing or some type of writing, and they would be given that medallion. That's in our York W. Bailey Museum right now. So, this picture is Dr. King inside of Frizzell Community House. Frizzell Community House is the memorial building to our first schoolhouse. The first schoolhouse being brought in 1865, being placed at that site. So it deteriorated, and so they would take, boards down and do as much as they could with renovation, but finally just took the whole building down, the first schoolhouse. And so Frizzell is going to be the memorial to our first schoolhouse, but also where SCLC, the Baha'i Faith, CORE, SNCC, Peace Corps, where many multiracial organizations would come and meet. So that's a very important building. These retreats at Penn, the SCLC retreats, played, like I said, an even vital part of the SCLC's evolution. and King's participation in the civil rights movement, especially the retreats that took place between 1965 and 1967. King stated after some setbacks that SCLC faced in the 60s that he himself needed a respite from his wearying daily schedule of travels and speeches, and that he and SCLC needed the opportunity for serious reflection on the strategic choices that may lie ahead, and called for a 5-day retreat at Penn Center, November 11th through the 17th of 1966. This is going to be the first several days. Many of the other retreats were 2 days, 3 days, but this is going to be the first one that has been extended. And during this retreat, Dr. King introduced his outline for the days ahead, the retreat ahead. And he says, quote, I'm going to talk about, first, from whence we came. Secondly, where are we now? And thirdly, where do we go from here? So that's really important. Like I stated earlier, he's always going to give at least one speech or sermon or an informal talk. But this day, when he's laying out this outline, he's outlining a book, actually. Where do we go from here? Chaos or Community? And this is kind of like the outline of the book that is to come. So while at Penn, that's Andrew Young, Insider Frizzell. Okay, some more SCLC members. Move forward. Also more SCLC on Penn Center's campus inside of our dining hall with Dr. King. Some of the members, they stayed in all of the dormitories on the campus, and this is some of them just relaxing, unwinding after some heated debate. This is another image of Dr. King. So they broke out in song quite often as needed. So while at Penn, King spoke about the 3 basic evils of America. He spoke about the evil of racism, the evil of excessive materialism, and the evil of militarism. And these are the things that really but really make him even more of a target. Definitely. He called them the inseparable triplets. I'll read a little something here. I want to read a quote. Some of you football fans might appreciate this. It's just a show. Maybe. So this is a metaphor. And these are King's words. We brought the football of civil rights through gains in public accommodations and the right to vote to about the 50-yard line. And now we're moving into the opposition's territory. We must not forget now that there are diehards on that team determined to defeat our advance, determined to keep us from getting across the goal line, determined to resist every move. I think at this moment that we have got to get together and see that we have some good quarterbacks calling sound signals, that we have some good forces in the backfield running the ball, that we have a great, dedicated, abiding line making the way through. As we move on, sometimes we may even fumble the ball, but for God's sake, recover it. And then we will move on down the field. And I believe that with this kind of moral power, with this kind of determination, with this kind of willingness to suffer, we'll get across that goal line. Those are his words. So after this particular retreat, King took a 2-month leave of absence. Here goes Joan Baez, sorry. My slides are kind of out of sync. But that's Joan Baez breaking out her guitar. Some more singing. They did a lot of singing, huh? Oh, no, go back. Let's stay here. So at this retreat, he decided to take a 2-month leave of absence from SCLC to work on a book. And that book would be Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community, the outline that he used in spoke of during the retreat. Also during this retreat, King came to understand, and these are his words, "It is necessary for us to realize that we have moved from an era of civil rights to an era of human rights." And he goes on to say, "We are talking about a good, solid, well-paid job. We are talking about a good, sound, sanitary house. We are talking not merely about desegregated education, but we are talking about quality education." So, these are some of the things that he is thinking about during the time that he's taking this 2-month break. And he spent, some of them was 2 months right in that cottage, in the Gantt cottage on Penn Center's campus. Not the full 2 months, but he came here to St. Helena Island to be able to work and also to retreat and write and rest. And the Board of Trustees at Penn Center decided that he was coming so often that they should build a retreat house on the water, further separated and further protected for him, and that is still there. However, he did not get to stay in that building. This last SCLC staff retreat at Penn before King's death was a 7-day meeting held during the 27th of November through the 2nd of December. It featured one brief informal motivational speech by King titled "Why a Movement?" and a second, longer, more formal, and more inspirational one called "The State of the Movement." And these speeches demonstrated the way King used different types of addresses for different purposes at staff retreats. And they provided excellent illustrations of the ways in which the retreats gave SCLC opportunities and focus. Dr. King never returned to Penn Center and did not live to see the Poor People's Campaign reach Washington. He was assassinated a few months later, so his last time at Penn was in December of 1967, and then on April 4th, 1968, in Memphis, he was assassinated. So I'm going to end my talk there and invite any questions that you may have. And it may not have to be about SCLC or Dr. King at Penn. If you have questions about Penn Center, I'm very, very happy to take any for you. Yes?
I've heard a rumor he wrote his speech about I Have a Dream. Is that true?
So, Dr. King wrote, okay, yeah, so Mr. Hunt stated that he heard a rumor that Dr. King wrote the I Have a Dream speech at Penn Center. And we know that we have found handwritten drafts of the quote-unquote I Have a Dream speech inside of Gantt Cottage. He was going to be coming back often. And so much so that we built the retreat house on the water for him to stay in. So papers and things like that were left within Gantt Cottage, and one of the papers was a handwritten draft of the I Have a Dream speech, which Penn Center turned over to the family, the King family. Yes. Is there another question? Yes, sir.
What was that religion you spoke of? Baha'i?
Yeah, Baha'i faith. Wow, so it's a world religion, and it believes in the unity of mankind. And of course, as I said earlier, about they're against inequality and against segregation. And from what I understand from a Post and Courier News article, it's the second largest or fastest growing religion here in the state of South Carolina. So they had multi races within their, they do have within the faith. And so Penn Center served, or Penn Community Service served as a place where they could also meet during an era of segregation where they could feel safe and to meet.